Well, I just want to thank everybody for taking the time out this morning to come to this Zoom press conference, and certainly want to thank Senator Hurtado and Assembly members and senators that are on the Zoom call also. Today, we come together this morning to talk about a very much needed issue here in the state of California, and it deals with suicide. Suicide rates are high, and in 2018, there was 481 Californians who died of suicide. And in December of 2019, the Mental Health Services Oversight and Accountability Commission revealed that suicide is the second leading cause of death for American Indian and Alaska Native children and adults ages 10 to 34. COVID-19 is increasing the danger that faces our community dealing with suicide and mental health issues. Just from February to March, crisis hotlines calls have increased from 20 calls to 1,800 calls in our district. Just from these areas, we see that the need for suicide intervention, suicide prevention, and mental health in particular is needed throughout the state of California. This increased the threat demands a coordinated and focused approach to focus on vulnerable groups like veterans, the LGBTQ, and seniors, and especially our young people and people of color. Suicide is also the leading cause of death for American Indians and Alaska Native children and adults ages 10 to 34. This commission, when I introduced AB 2112 in February, we knew we had to do better. Now this is an even more urgent need for this bill, which would create a statewide office of suicide prevention. And the first step in what this bill would do would coordinate research efforts, share successful practices, and help us spot trends and patterns so we can respond more effectively and save lives to the demographics and the population that drastically need the resources. This is a first step. By all means, this does not solve the problem. This is a first step in addressing the issue that faces so many of our constituents in the state of California. At a time of great grief, people need to know that there's resources out there that would help them through these different times. And I always say, as we start to talk about moving the economy forward, we cannot talk about moving our economy forward unless we're going to talk about the mental health and stability of our communities. And that includes mental health and suicide prevention. These are areas that we're starting to move forward on, that we're not going to take a back seat to, that we're not going to shy away from moving to talk about these issues. For so long, the issue of suicide has been an area where people will tend to walk away from rather to engage in the discussion. No longer can we be that state. No longer can we be that community that shies away from getting those resources out there to those that need it. These are the reasons why we move forward with AB 2112. And I want to thank one of our principal co-authors who's with us here today, and that's Senator Melissa Hurtado, who would like to say a few words.
Thank you, Assemblymember Ramos, and thank you to all those that are on this call today. As you all know, we are here to talk about a very important topic and stress the importance of it, AB 2112. You know, I am honored to really be a part of this bill and to push this issue forward, you know, given that in my district, Fresno County and Kern County have the highest rates of youth suicide. And just this past June, the Fresno County saw a jump of 17 suicides in 1 month. That's unacceptable. We need to do more. This is an issue that was beginning to, you know, really be more of an issue prior to COVID. And now during COVID, it's even more important. And I have to say that I have a lot of appreciation for Assemblymember Ramos, because although we're both new, he took this topic on and wanted to address it. And just 2 weeks ago, about 2 weeks ago, he and I had a conversation, and this bill was, you know, mentioned. And, you know, there's reason and purpose for why we as legislators push certain topics or certain issues forward. And I have to say that this is something that is personal to Assemblymember Ramos and to myself. And it really something that we bonded over, because he has his own experiences. I have my own experiences, having lost a loved one earlier this year and almost losing another loved one just 2 weeks ago. And so the need for this type of bill is important more than ever. But I really want to just thank Assemblymember Ramos for being a champion and moving this issue forward, not giving up. And one of the things that I said to him during our conversation a few weeks ago, I said, you know, a bill will help us with suicide prevention, but it will not stop us. And so, you know, I really want to take this opportunity as well to say that, yes, we are moving forward with this bill and we want to get the information. We want to do more to prevent suicide. But at the same time, we're not going to stop at this. We're going to do more to get involved and just to let the community know that, yes, these are difficult times. We're all struggling. It's challenging, even for ourselves, for assembly members, for senators. It's something that we're all going through. We're all in this crisis together, but we will overcome it, and we will only do it together. And it's also an opportunity to tell our community members to be patient with others, and to also just remember to love our loved ones as well. Thank you for this opportunity, and thank you, Assemblymember Ramos, for making me part of this important piece of legislation.
But thank you, Senator. Our next speaker is Eva Terrazas from Uplift Family Services. Is she on the line?
I am. Good
There you are.
morning.
Good.
Good morning, Assemblymember and everybody on the call. Eva Terrazas, Vice President Public Policy at Uplift Family Services. We're one of the state's largest behavioral health and child welfare agency, and we provide services in 28 counties and serve over 34,000 children and families. We are also members of the California Alliance of Child and Family Services, who co-sponsored this measure. I am so pleased to be here today in support of AB 2112, a bill with significant import, particularly in this current time of COVID-19, has been mentioned before. As we all know, grief, loneliness, stress, uncertainty about the future, all pandemic-related emotions can foster feelings of hopelessness and increase the risk of suicide. And while official data won't be available for some time, we do know that calls, as has been mentioned, to hotlines have spiked. And firearm sales have also surged, which is a disturbing trend given data showing that guns are the most common method of suicide in the US. The stressors related to COVID-19 amplified pre-existing living and mental health conditions and put a spotlight on the gaps of services, particularly for communities of color and/or with poor outcomes in the social determinants of health. While suicide prevention efforts are already occurring across the state, we need coordination. We need clear messages and practices, and we need a vigilant method of monitoring suicide data, especially for those with high risk of suicide, our youth, particularly Native American youth, older adults, and LGBTQ people. There's no question that these unprecedented times have intensified the mental health challenges faced by many Californians. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of this press conference.
Thank you so much. And it's the very reason we introduced this bill is to make sure that the voices throughout all of our communities are being heard. Next, I would like to call on Kiara Weatherford. She is a 17-year-old and a recent graduate from McKinleyville High School. She will be attending college at the Redwoods Junior College in fall. Ms. Weatherford is a member of the Trinidad Rancheria. Kiara, you on?
Yeah, I'm right here. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to talk. My name is Kiara Weatherford. I am 17 years old and a proud member of the Trinidad Rancheria. I am Karuk, Yurok, and Chetco descent. I am a recent graduate of East High School. I am a strong advocate for my Native American youth mental health and suicide prevention. In my 17 years of living, I have experienced my fair share of struggles, including losing my father just over 2 years ago, witnessing rampant substance abuse, mental health issues in my tribe, and experiencing my own mental health issues. Unfortunately, I can tell you that I am not an exception in my Native American community. I have witnessed firsthand many of my peers' struggles with mental health issues, including suicide ideation. In fact, Native American suicide rates in Humboldt County are often 2 to 3 times state and national average. In these times with COVID-19, I can tell you my peers are struggling even more. It is urgent that we prioritize youth mental wellness and suicide prevention efforts in California. And for these reasons, I am in full support of the bill AB 2112. It is time to have a coordinated and effective approach for suicide prevention in our state.
Thank you. Thank you for those comments. We also have a speaker on the line here, Zofia Trexer, who's the president of the California Youth Empowerment Network, a program of Mental Health America of California. Ms. Trexler?
Hi, my name is Zofia. I'm from Fresno, California. Thank you so much for giving me a platform today. So 4 years ago, I was a freshman in high school, and that new era of my life came with a lot of new mental health struggles, as it so often does. So I was having like panic attacks multiple times a week. I was experiencing a rapid decline into depression, and it didn't feel like any of my classmates really understood what I was feeling. At the time of my suicide attempt, I was a straight A student with a healthy social life. But that really didn't stop me from reaching a place where I thought that giving up was the only way to end my unhappiness. That's why AB 2112 is so important, because things like mental illness and suicidal ideation have the potential to impact anyone at any stage or place in life. I wish that there had been a support system in place for me before I ever reached that point, before I ever needed to be put under a 5150. By supporting AB 2112 and other suicide prevention legislation, you have the ability to put that support system in place for others, something which can literally be the difference between life and death. And I just wanted to reiterate that mental health doesn't stop mattering after this COVID-19 pandemic, and it's something that we always have to be elevating and always need to be focusing on, because mental health is just as important as physical health. And AB 2112 is the first step to putting those on an equal level as far as California health legislation is concerned. Thank you so much again for giving me a platform today. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. And thank you to all of our speakers. And it really shines a light on the importance of the work that we're doing here in the legislature, especially tackling issues that others would shy away from. But we need to be able to talk about and getting resources to those that are struggling in our communities. Mental health is a big component of that. Suicide prevention is a big component. We heard those testimonies that are there. So at this point, I would like to see if Assemblymember Marc Berman is on the line.
I am. Thank you, Assemblymember Ramos. Good to see you.
Good to see you, our friend.
Good to see you too. My name is Marc Berman. I represent the 24th Assembly District in the heart of Silicon Valley. And I'm here today as a proud principal co-author of Assembly Bill 2112. I want to start off by thanking my colleague and friend, Assemblymember Ramos, for his strong and thoughtful leadership on this critically important issue. And I also really want to thank Kiara and Zofia for speaking here this morning. You know, your bravery in talking about the experiences that you've gone through and the experiences that you've seen your peers and friends and family go through is so important to help destigmatize these issues and try to increase awareness about it and help people get the help that they need. The issue of suicide prevention and youth mental health hits very close to home for me. I grew up in and served on the city council of Palo Alto, a city full of high achievers and high expectations. Tragically, my hometown also has very high youth suicide rates and has struggled through 2 youth suicide clusters in the last 11 years. 6 young people died in the 2009-2010 timeframe, and 4 died in 2014-2015 when I was serving on the city council. Unfortunately, Palo Alto is not alone in experiencing these tragedies. mental health and suicidal ideation don't discriminate, not by age or race or gender or geographic location or socioeconomic status. And during my time in the Assembly, I've authored legislation to ensure school suicide prevention policies are kept up to date and secured funding to provide teachers, school administrators, and students with free online suicide prevention training. Suicide is a statewide issue in need of a coordinated statewide response. And I truly believe that establishing a statewide office dedicated to suicide prevention will help us save lives, keeping families and communities whole. So thank you for everyone being here today. And thank you again to my colleague, Assemblymember Ramos, for taking the lead on this really important issue. Looking forward to working with you more on these issues in the future.
Thank you, Assemblymember Berman. At this time, I'd like to have Assemblymember Cecilia Aguiar-Curry speak to the issue as a co-author. Hit the mute.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking the lead on this, Assembly Member. I'm very proud to be a co-author on this, and Senator Hurtado for taking the lead in the Senate. Takes leadership like this to help on these issues. Mental health is such an incredible issue in the throughout the nation, throughout the world. We keep putting these types of bills in a closet and not want to talk about it. And so many times we try to get legislation and they keep getting stopped. This is the time that we need to stand up as legislators to make sure that we are taking care of not only physical health, as we've said, but mental health. I love AB 2112. I think it's going to do great for our entire state of California. But let's remember something. We implemented telehealth this past year during the COVID, and they've seen a 750% increase of people that have behavioral health appointments doing those through Zoom, doing those through Skype, and are getting the help that they need. So I'm hoping we can work together. We can collect the data of how many people are actually taking advantage of doing telehealth, as well as working with mental health and our suicide prevention. And just a real quick shout out to my really good friend, Bill, who lost his son this past year from suicide. And I promised him that day that I would do whatever I could to help on suicide prevention. So thank you so much. I really want to thank Kyra and Sophie, your bravery, and let's continue to do the good work. Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblywoman Curry. Next, I'm not sure if Assemblymember Wendy Carrillo, did you make it on the Zoom? Assemblymember Eduardo Garcia, are you on the line?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. Good morning. Buenos dias. I figured that since much has been said already, and I know that we have the media online as well, and perhaps some who are from the Spanish-speaking outlets, I thought I'd say a few words en español. Buenos días. Mi nombre es Eduardo Garcia, asambleísta del Distrito 56, representando las áreas del este de Riverside y el Valle Imperial. Estamos aquí esta mañana para llamar atención a la propuesta AB 2112. Es una propuesta que quiere abrir una oficina estatal para tratar el tema de la salud mental, específicamente el problema del suicidio dentro de nuestras comunidades. Este año, con la pandemia del COVID-19, hemos visto un aumento enorme en, desafortunadamente, el fallecimiento por suicidio dentro de las comunidades, específicamente comunidades de color en el estado de California. El sufrimiento económico ha tomado un impacto enorme a la salud mental de los californianos, y sabemos que también es un tema que tiene un impacto enorme en nuestros jóvenes, veteranos y muchos otras poblaciones. Esta propuesta intenta hacer una consolidación de los servicios y programas que existen ya para coordinar mejor los recursos dentro de nuestro estado para atacar y prevenir el suicidio dentro de nuestras comunidades. Para nosotros, esta propuesta es muy importante porque todos conocemos a alguien que ha sido impactado por esta pandemia del suicidio. Queremos asegurar que haya un esfuerzo coordinado por parte del Estado y esto es lo que esta propuesta está haciendo. Le damos mucho reconocimiento al asambleísta Ramos por tomar el liderazgo con esta propuesta y también reconociendo a los jóvenes, a la joven Kiara, que es miembro de una tribu indígena aquí del estado de California, que nos comparte su testimonio de lo que pasa en su reservación, específicamente lo que ha ella triunfado para llegar a estos logros que ella menciona. Con eso, muchísimas gracias a los medios que nos acompañan, a los compañeros que están con nosotros y de vuelta muchas gracias al asambleísta Ramos, a la senadora Hurtado que han tomado liderazgo al tema con la propuesta AB 2112. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Assemblymember Eduardo Garcia, for those comments and those kind words in translating and making sure the message is getting out to all in our communities here in the state of California. With the Zoom, I can't see if there is other assembly members that are on the line that would like to say a few words. I do know that I see a Assembly Member Rodriguez. So Assembly Member, would you like to say a few words?
Sure, Assemblymember Ramos. Thank you very much for bringing this very important legislation forward, and Senator Hurtado as well. As many of you may know, I've worked as a first responder for over 30 years. And as I'm sitting here listening to the discussion, how important this legislation is, I could just look back and all the hundreds of calls that I responded on to people needing mental health services because of suicide, things that they wanted to do to hurt themselves. And I think now more than ever with the pandemic that we have with COVID-19, that we need legislation like this, like 2112, that'll help give resources, the much needed resources through the state to help provide assistance to our communities, especially now more than ever. And like one of the speakers said earlier, it's not just because of the pandemic, it's even before the pandemic we had these issues, but now even more so, then we need to keep advocating for services like this to help our communities throughout the state. So once again, I want to thank all the folks that are on the line sharing their stories and support and advocating for 2112. I think it's going to take us in the right direction to help provide the much needed services for our communities. So thank you once again to Senator Hurtado and Assemblymember Ramos for bringing this very important legislation forward. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you to all the speakers and the co-authors and principal co-authors that have spent this morning with us to bring a much needed issue to the forefront of the topics that are going on here in the state of California. And again, when we talk about moving the economy forward, there's no way we could talk about moving the economy forward if we're not willing to address the mental health of all of the individuals in the state of California to move the state forward. We heard the testimony from those that are out there that see the need for those resources on the front lines. These are issues that are facing each and every one of us. This bill is much needed here in the state of California to build the advocacy as the first step to continue to address the crisis of suicides in the state of California. We're no longer shying away from the topic and the word. We're now engaging in that topic and the word to make sure that we're bringing resolve to the communities that need it. One of the areas that this bill does address and will allow the Office of Statewide Suicide Prevention is to dive into those demographics and to find out where it is that we need those resources the most. And we heard from those that are there, the different issues on the front lines, real life issues of those that are going to school. The highest rates are between the ages of 10 and 24 years of age. That's our youth. And if we continue to say that the youth is our future, we cannot shy away from giving them the resources to overcome obstacles in life. That's why AB 2112 is needed. It needs to move off the Senate floor and off to the governor. And we need to make sure we put pressure to make sure that the governor understands the importance of this to sign this bill into law. I want to thank each and every presenter that's here and those that are on the Zoom call. And at this point, if there's any questions, we would be happy to address them. Any questions? This is a very much needed piece of legislation to move forward the discussion. It doesn't solve it, but it highlights the need for it for future work for those that are on this call to stay together and united to make sure that we're moving the pendulum forward on addressing suicide prevention and mental health here in the state of California. Thank you for attending.